Hey,
Hello, what's up, Woody?
what's happening, Jacob?
Nothing much. Last I saw you, we were in the TTL in New York, and that feels like not too long ago.
Listen, it actually feels like a whole decade ago,
Yeah.
which I can't believe because that was such a big moment in time.
Yeah, especially on tonal time, that feels like a while ago. And I have my notes up here, and you've had a busy year between helping kick off the TTL, your March challenge, and heat wave, and now highway to hypertrophy. So how are you feeling?
Jacob, honestly, I said to myself, you know what, Woody, 2025, it feels like the year to just kind of get to scheming, to just scheme and don't stop scheming. So from January, which has now we're in June, we're almost in June, which is crazy to me that we're nearly halfway through the year already. But
Mhm.
I said, let's just make 2025 a banger.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
that it has been.
yeah, I feel like the whole company is on that same energy too. I feel like everyone's just heads down, putting out good content, working together. And now we have highway to hypertrophy to start to, introduce our members to.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm super excited about it. But I want to know what I've been scheming over here. What have you been scheming up on the
oh,
performance team?
All right, so we have one thing that unfortunately is still under wraps, which has been a very massive cross-functional effort between like all the teams at Tonal, and we'll release more soon. But from the member side, you can just expect a big feature coming soon. It's going to be very personalized, and it's going to help you get into workouts easily when you walk up to your trainer. So we'll share more soon there, and I apologize for the vagueness, but. What I'm happy to share about, which has been a passion project for me, the performance team, and all of the coaches here, is we are revamping our ultimate program guide. And internally, our goal with this is to solve the question in the OTC of what should I do next once and for all. And we're going to make this a bit interactive. So on next Tuesday, if everything works out, we're going to put a survey in the OTC and we're going to have a series of questions and we'd love feedback because ultimately we want to make sure that we can help sequence our program recommendations for our members and meet all of their needs and all of their goals. So that is something I am really excited to move forward with.
I'm really excited about that too, and I know our members are going to be super stoked to see a revamped version of the Ultimate Program Guide. A little bit more guidance, a little bit of guidance goes a long way. So,
Yeah. And to transition, so the data that we use to sort of sequence programs together is all based on our content scoring.
mhm.
And when I'm looking at these top programs, and we have over 300 programs here, and I'm seeing this one that's at the top for muscle growth now, and it hasn't been released yet, and it's highway to hypertrophy, and it's I don't know what it was must have been like to develop that in your mind and to go through coaching it, but you're top 10 out of 300. So do you want to give us sort of your overview of sort of how this program came to be?
Wow, that's a crazy stat. That's actually my first time hearing it, so it brings me a lot of joy. I'm really excited about Highway to Hypertrophy, guys. This is kind of a little bit of a deviation from what I typically coach and what's usually within my repertoire. So first and foremost, the program is going to drop on Friday, May 30th. So you'll have access to it in a couple of weeks on your trainer and on the app. And then the challenge will begin the following Monday, so June 2nd. So June is going to be a big month for us. But hence the title, the goal with Highway to Hypertrophy is of course hypertrophy. So that means we want to grow the size of our muscles. Like I said, it's a little bit different from my typical style and like what our members usually expect from me. And I'm excited to deliver something new and kind of like bring a different type of energy to the screen. Um, Recently I released Road to Recomp, which was a massive hit. So we're thinking about and thank you to the community for making it such a smash. Um, But if we're thinking about kind of like my approach to that program and then approach to this program, we actually can kind of approach recomposition from a hypertrophy lens. So, recomp often takes like this hypertrophy approach to build muscle and burn fat simultaneously, and you can expect to elicit that same result with this program with high weight to hypertrophy, with kind of this like cliff note that like your holistic success in this program, if body recomp continues to be your goal, is going to be dependent on like that complementary nutrition and some supplementary cardio, because that element, that kind of like metabolic conditioning element that members are probably used to getting from me, is sort of, it's not included in this program. It's a missing piece of this programming, being that we're super focused on lifting on tonal and accumulating a lot of volume. So yeah, this is an advanced program, which, another cliff note, I don't want anyone to be um scared or feel as though maybe they're not prepared for this because of that advanced tag. It is advanced because of the heavy workload. And while there is a high workload, and we begin the program with barbell based movements, which we consider are more advanced movements on tonal, this is a classic format, so pacing is within your control. And within the guidelines, you can always pause, you can take as much time to get into the next move as you need. And also movement replacement and recovery mode are always at your disposal. So things that you already know, but just want to remind you, if that advanced tag is kind of like, ooh, making you a little bit iffy about joining this program. But overall, I'm super excited. We'll dive more into the details, but this is going to be a really good follow-up to Heat Wave, which a lot of our friends are doing this month, and also 12 weeks to Jacked, which I know a lot of people have recently completed or are about to finish.
Yeah, I just want to put a pin into two things. One, you mentioned the importance of supplementing any training with proper nutrition. And just yesterday, I sent my brother-in-law the nutrition guide that we put together back in January. And I was revisiting it for myself. And instead of me having to type it up, it's a great resource that we still have, and we can resurface that in the OTC. But it could be a great time to revisit it with this program. And I also, before this chat, was looking at the program, and at one point I was like, oh, this is intimidating, but it does seem to be distributed between all the training days. So it's actually like approachable. Like when I was looking at it, I was like, yes, I would get my butt kicked, but I'm not gonna like die. So can you talk about the overarching concept? You've told us the goal. Can you tell us the training style that you're bringing to life? And then maybe we can get into, what we have each day.
Yeah, so we're reverting back to the Germans for this one. So we do a lot of GBC, or German body composition, training on tonal. I mean, our classic live format that so many people know and love. This format is just, it's really approachable and palatable because it's traditionally a full body training method where you alternate lower and upper body exercises, right? And we can kind of like minimize our transition or rest time, being that we're not hitting the same muscle group back to back.
Hmm.
So while we know and love GBC, we're kind of going a different direction here with German volume training. So this is a method that is specifically designed to elicit hypertrophy, again, muscle growth, through the accumulation of volume. And we are going to accumulate a lot of volume each program day. So big difference already is that we're going to really take our time with these GVT workouts, whereas we may be a little bit more time efficient with a GBC method. Diving in a little bit more, traditionally GVT or German volume training is a 10 by 10 structure, right? So 10 reps for 10 sets, or 10 reps, or 10 sets of 10 reps, of a compound movement. This is like a classic bodybuilding structure that has been used for ages, right? And there's been a little bit more recent like research and evidence on this that shows like, okay, maybe 10 sets is like a little egregious. Do we need to go that intense? Do we need to accumulate that much volume? And the research is showing that, yeah, we can probably taper back. We don't need to hit 10. That could actually be a little bit detrimental. I mean, you can imagine how much fatigue you're experiencing by the time you get to your 10th set. But, other things that we have on Tonal at our disposal, massive resources, things like Burnout to assist us as we're working through a lot of heavy sets. So for this program, we went for 5 to 8 sets of your main compound lifts. So over the 4 weeks, we'll begin the first week with 5 sets of our main compound lift. The second week will be 6, third will be 7. And finally, in that fourth week, we're going to be hitting 8 sets of our main compound lifts. So this is really going to challenge you to establish some good work capacity. You're going to adapt over the 4 weeks to some of these higher workloads and accumulating volume, and you're going to uncover some really big gains along the way.
Before I ask you a follow-up question, I'll just give an anecdote. You can't tell me how I walk around 165, 170, but the biggest I ever was in college when I was doing German volume training. So I think my personal experience and also our objective content scoring says you're going to get a lot of local muscle volume and then also at the full body level. But you mentioned something about managing fatigue and not necessarily wanting to blow you up early in the week and scrap everything. And I think you're a master of your craft, or like a good a bartender makes a good drink and you can't taste the alcohol in it because each workout seems to have just the perfect amount of volume, but it's not going to destroy you for the next session. So, can you just give us an outline, of what the different days in the program look like? Because how can we do so much volume across 5 days?
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to attack this with a classic split. Okay. We're going to have 5 days a week. We'll start with a lower body day. It'll be our first of 3 lower body days. So we'll go lower, upper, lower, upper, lower. The lower body days will go as follows. We'll begin with a deadlift focused day. The second lower body day will be squat focused. And the third one will be hip thrusts. And then the upper body days will be our first one. We'll combine chest and back. And then the second one will be shoulders and biceps.
Hmm.
So each session will focus on 1 to 2 compound lifts. You'll see 1 compound lift in your first block for the lower body days where I just talked about the main focus. And then on the upper body days, you'll say 2 compound lifts for that first block. We'll follow up that initial block with an accessory block. And the accessory block is really going to be where we kind of manipulate some things and move some things around just to kind of like keep you engaged and interested over the 4 weeks. That accessory block will change in both volume and exercise selection from week to week.
Mhm.
But your compound lifts are going to stay the same. So you have an opportunity here to like really lock in on your movement mechanics. Watch yourself become stronger. Watch that weight dial go up from week to week. And then again, you're going to be adapting to that increased volume week to week because we're going to go from 5 to 8 sets by week 4. So within this, there's going to be 2 programmed rest days, one suggested recovery workout on the calendar, and then like a true rest day. And I will say this, when I first started testing these workouts, like in that first week, it's daunting. I'm not gonna lie. Like, there's probably been a time or two where you've done like I kind of trend around like the 4 to 5 sets range, like if I'm doing like a really heavy lift or a heavy day. But pushing into that like 6 to 8 set range, it's a lot. So when I first started testing these workouts, like I was finding myself taking some like elongated rest periods. Like I'm messaging Jenna and I'm like, Jenna, I don't know, like this just took me an hour plus, you know? But I say that not to scare you away, but I say it to say like even for myself, like there's this adaptation period and like, you give yourself the time to settle into the program, like no ego, just like listening to your body, kind of gauging your energy and your recovery within the workout and then following the workout. And really give yourself that first week to settle in. And then from there, I think you're going to become a little bit more acclimated and conditioned and it's going to start feeling like more of a groove.
I mean, you touched on a lot there. The one thing that I want to compliment is when you mentioned like the accessory blocks versus your primary block. I think that is another way that makes it appear a little less daunting, especially on the lower body days where you don't have a superset and you can really just focus on recovering. I tend to train in supersets, so sometimes if I don't feel recovered, that could seem overwhelming, but you mentioned you take some longer rest periods, and I
Yeah.
think holistically that's something that we have programmed a little longer than some of your typical programs that you'll do. So can you explain why members should maybe lean into a bit longer of a rest period throughout this program?
Yeah, I mean, after you've lifted heavy within this hypertrophy rep range, your body's tired. Your mind is tired. Your central nervous system is kind of shot. You're like, you need a moment to recover between sets and following a workout, right? So within this program, every single compound, whether it's a superset or a movement that stands alone, that first primary block, you're going to see a 60-second rest, programmed rest period. It's programmed because you need to take it, right?
Mm.
You absolutely need to take it for that recovery, allowing your muscles a second so that you can come back and you can give it 100% on the next set. You can kind of catch up to the fatigue. Um, but again, since this is a classic format, you can take as much time as you need. I want you to take the 60 seconds. And again, no ego if you take more time. That's a nice thing. Like the clock's just going to keep running until you start your next set. So yeah, like particularly in that first week where we're shocking the body with heavy loads and a lot of sets, it's going to be hard and
Mhm.
you're going to experience fatigue, and you're going to need the time to recover. So take more than the minute if necessary and don't overthink it.
Yeah, I like that. And I think especially if the goal is muscle growth, you want to have high quality sets. So you want to bring the sets to failure, but you want to be able to accumulate as much volume as you can, especially in that first block. So putting yourself in a position to be recovered is helpful. And on the notion of timing, I
Yeah.
also saw some notes that you were pretty meticulous in how you paced not only between sets, but also within the reps themselves, potentially on the different phases of the move. Is there anything you want to add there that is maybe different to some of your other work, or yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. I'm kind of a broken record with this. Like within the program, you're going to hear me say it so many times. Um, so let me just note this. I've mentioned that this is a classic program many times here, but just in case our friends don't know, the difference between like a classic format and what we might call smart linear or live is that I'm not doing the workout with you like I would be in a smart linear or a live workout or program. I'll be standing up, telling you what's coming up. I'll talk about the upcoming block and the movements and kind of like give you words of encouragement, and then it'll cut to a move demo and you have your way with it, which is why you're so in control of the pace here. So that's the difference between these two formats. So in the stand-ups, and then also you're going to hear some voiceover. So while you're working, I'm still there. You're going to hear me cueing you a lot on pacing. So I speak a lot to encouraging you to take your time, particularly in the eccentric or the negative phase of the movement. So, like, say we're talking about deadlifts, the lowering or the lengthening phase. So, as you're making your way down your shins with the barbell, I might encourage you to move super slow, maybe count to for a three count, count to three on the way down. And the intention here is to like really maximize our muscular tension. That's one of the biggest things that elicits hypertrophy, right? So we're increasing that time under tension, particularly in the lengthening phase, to hopefully potentially cause more muscle damage and just really optimize the effort that you're putting in.
That sounds great. And just to add on to that, on the research side, there's been all these theories and of what drives muscle hypertrophy. And the one theory that hasn't been debunked yet is mechanical tension. So
Yes.
that is the I think you are building in strategies not only through volume but through the pacing of the reps to put our members in a position to get that growth they're looking for. And I just can't escape the content scoring and seeing it score so high. So I hope we can do one of these after people finish the program and maybe just get some feedback in how they felt.
Oh
I
yeah.
want to ask you some questions on, recovery strategies and what members should feel like at the end of the program. But before that, is there anything else related to the program or any anecdotes you wanted to share that we didn't get to touch on? Because I know you put a lot of time, the whole team put a lot of time into this program, so I want to make sure you get to talk about everything.
Yeah. I think that I think that I want to say this. When we were putting this together, I kind of went back and forth between like how many days a week, how we would structure it because it is June, right? So we know that we're in the middle of summer or just getting started with summer. People are having leading busy lives. You're just coming off of whatever program you've just done. Like I was really trying to think about like how I could take, the hypertrophy goal um and also in consideration of what your lifestyle might look like right now in this season, and just make sure that I'm catering to what the general consensus might be. But ultimately, we settled on 5 days. It felt right for this particular training method. Um, and again, I'm really excited about the way that we attacked it, but I do want to say that while I know that 5 days can feel a little bit daunting, especially if you have a busy schedule, so I just want to throw it out there that, we know that, balance is key in everything that we do. It can be the hardest thing that we do, but it looks different for everyone. And jumping into this program, like my biggest piece of advice would be like at the start of every single week, look at what you've got coming up, and schedule your workouts. Schedule them for a time where you know nothing is going to get in the way. There's not potential of pushing it back or pushing it off because with a 5 day week program, that can kind of catch up to you, right? Like it's not like 3 days a week where you go, oh, I can put this off for a couple of days or whatever it might be, and it can make some changes here. Planning in advance is going to be really helpful here, especially during a busy season. So yeah, set yourself up for success, get your sessions in. And after that first week where you kind of like give yourself a second to adjust to the workload and the training volume, like um give yourself that first week and then maybe make some adjustments to your schedule the second through fourth week based on like some supplementary workouts that you are finding additional time for, or you feel like you can absolutely continue to tackle those. Whether it's like group fitness or you're doing some like weekly sport or you really want to get your runs in, whatever it might be, like just set yourself up for success by scheduling early on. Um, I also wanted to mention that we talked about kind of how the program progresses. But yeah, we're gonna be setting ourselves up again week after week we're getting a little bit more intense, and the time of the workouts is going to increase, you're going to see. But like I mentioned, the pacing is all within your control. So take that time. The time is based on like the algorithm, like we'll throw in the movements, the sets, the rest, all of that stuff, and it produces a pretty on point number, but it's totally personal and dependent on you and your pacing. So take that time with a grain of salt, but know that we're going to be increasing our volume week to week, and you will become more proficient and conditioned and confident and comfortable. So, yeah, just a couple of notes there to just kind of like make you feel good and in control, and like, this outcome is going to be truly up to you.
Yeah, I think the progressive overload is key, and that's the DNA of tonal. And on
Mhm.
your note of scheduling the workouts, it just reminded me of what we found in State of Strength, in both that people who use the app more tend to be more consistent, as well as people who work out in the morning. And
Mm.
I think whenever you work out, it's good for you. Everyone has their own preference, but just to pair that, it was tossed around in our group chat the other day, but Whoop released a study where they showed that late evening workouts could potentially disrupt sleep. So I would recommend, especially if it makes you more consistent, when you're trying to find the time here, the morning, it tends to work for me personally, so maybe I'm biased, but I think if you want to hit these workouts on time, yeah, find a way to schedule in advance, use the app, and maybe see if the morning works for you before the day takes over.
Yeah, I like that advice. I'm kind of a midday workout person, but I do find that, the earlier I get it done, like the fewer excuses you have,
Yeah.
like things just accumulate, they come up throughout the day. So if you're putting it off, it's more likely that something's going to interrupt you.
Yeah, and I feel set up for the day too if you get the hard thing done first. And I'll tell you, these workouts are hard.
Yeah.
To help with recovery in general, you mentioned
Yeah.
some cross training. Yeah,
Mhm.
do you have any general tips? I know there you were part of a talk not too long ago going over
Yeah.
recovery, but yeah, any top three things you want our members to think about when they're going through this?
Um, Make time for it. Make
Mm,
time for it. I mean, just as we're talking about making time and scheduling these workouts, make time for recovery, make time for the things that you love so that you're still feeling fulfilled and, you're happy. I want you to be happy. And, um, you know, I think that recovery is essential. We should be recovering, or we should be scheduling recovery just like we schedule our workouts. And while I've been testing some of these workouts, I have actually been diving a little bit deeper into the world of yoga. So that feels really good. And on some days, I'll do my workout on tonal, and I'm able to do heated yin yoga the same day. Yin is kind of like a little bit more of a stretch than it is like a power yoga type class. So that's super helpful. It feels amazing, especially after lifting really heavy. So just setting yourself up for success again, and like continuing to do the things that work for you. Yeah, as you mentioned, recovery is going to be key. And while we do have this split that's spaced out, and our rest days are spaced out, to complement each session in just the right way, like you got to listen to your body, and you got to make sure that you're showing up feeling good and 100 and not feeling fatigued, because then
mm,
your workout's going to take the hit, and you leave yourself to be a little bit more vulnerable to injury and things like that, and we don't want that. So
yeah.
yeah, just doing those things that you love, doing the things that make you feel good, and taking care of yourself and eating good, Jacob.
Yeah. I'm always my mind is always blown whenever I am intentional about having a yoga day or a mobility day, because you can walk around thinking that, oh, being stiff is just a side effect of training hard, but when you attack your mobility work with the same level of intent of your training, you're like, wow, that had immediate benefit. And for people with tonal too, that's one of my favorite parts of Arrow. We internally we just say we feel like unstuck after we do, 5, 10 minutes there. So maybe that is something that could
I
resonate with
like
some
that.
members in this program.
I like
Uh,
that word. You feel unstuck.
yeah, we can work on it. Maybe we'll get someone from marketing to give us
Yeah.
thoughts. Well, if you see that in
Make your
the
pitch.
yeah, if you see it in the next Arrow ad on Instagram reels, you know it came from here first. I think I covered all of my questions. You talked a lot in the beginning about the intent behind the program. Is there a way you want sort of our members to feel at the end of this program once they complete the challenge? Anything you want to keep there in their minds as they work through it?
Like more than anything, I want our friends to feel empowered. And I say this a lot, but I love training so much because in life there's so many things like that are out of our control, and training is something that you absolutely can control. And with that, just having the opportunity to like tackle something that maybe you're like a little unsure of, like maybe this won't fit my schedule, or I'm not sure if I'm quite ready for this like high level of programming and this heavy workload. But in the end, you show up for yourself, you put your best foot forward, you take control of the outcome, and you show yourself that you're capable of something that you weren't certain of before. I want everyone to feel impressed by themselves and proud of your commitment. And for me, it's really just like about the bigger picture, and the gains are just a nice bonus.
I'm fired up. I think I'm going to join this program. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I know our members will too.
Yeah.
I see we have a question.
Mhm.
I can read it out to you.
Okay.
Um, are there any modifications in mind for someone in their mid 50s versus mid 30s as it
Mhm.
pertains to hypertrophy work and reps theory? Also, just mentioned scheduling these days for success, but my job means some days I literally can't do a workout and need to push it back by a day or three. Will that matter? And that was from Mark.
Yeah. Mark, great questions. I want to say for the hypertrophy question, particularly with this program, I'll stay focused on this program. We're drilling um, tempo and like phasing of the movement so much that I think that this is going to be beneficial for you because, especially again, because it's a classic program. With this hypertrophy rep range, there's so many different ways that we can take it in terms of like training method. And I think this one will feel good for you in terms of the pacing and just feeling like, you're in control. And then as far as scheduling, the one tricky thing about pushing back these sessions, while in theory you may be able to stack sessions within a day, it's going to be so intense, Mark. Like it's going to be just such a heavy workload, that I would stray away from suggesting that you do that. Um, Again, just imagining how many sets you would have to get through. Like, say we're in week 4 and you stacked 2 lower body days. I mean, that's 16 sets of 10 of like two different massive compound movements. So it's against my better judgment. Um, with that said, like you do have the 2 rest days that you can kind of maybe move around if necessary. There's a little bit of movement here, given that it's 5 days a week and not 7. So
Mm.
um, that would be my that would be my response to that.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier too, on his note of, someone in mid 50s versus mid 30s,
Mhm.
swapping a move out if there's ever a move you just don't
Yes.
feel, if you're like, my body doesn't, it's scared of looking at a barbell right now, you can always opt in for a handle variation. But yeah, I think you covered everything else. And if you finish this in 5 weeks or 6 weeks, I think
Yeah.
what matters most is you show up and you put the work in, and then you'll get the benefits that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. There's totally that too. I mean, they're in past challenge groups even. And for this program coming up, I mean, you don't need to finish it in the same amount of time that everyone else does. You can absolutely stretch this thing out. That's another thing about the 5 days a week. If it feels more conducive to you to spread out the sessions, absolutely do that. a champion of that.
We got another question, and this is from Chris. Since there is more sets than normal programs, I was wondering if Tonal is going to adjust the weights accordingly. From what I see, German volume training is suggesting 50 to 60% of your 1RM for 10 sets of 10. Tonal normally uses 75% of your 1RM for a set of 10. Can you tell us about the weight settings?
Yeah, so we did talk about doing this. We did talk about kind of lowering the suggested weight, especially as we make our way into like, the 7, 8 rep range or 8 set range. But ultimately, we decided not to. Um, we lean heavily on burnout. So what that means is if you reach fatigue within a set, you're nearing the end of your sets. As always, you initiate a movement and you stop mid-range of motion. Tonal's going to notice that stop in your positive or concentric phase and lessen the load as necessary, and it will not go back up. So that will allow you to finish the set. Probably move a little bit more proficiently, which is positive. We want that. We want to always be supporting you so that you're not vulnerable and your form's not failing under like 100% load.
Hmm.
But burnout will always be there. You're always going to see that little flame in the weight dial, and I want you to use that and trust it as like as if I'm in the room with you and I'm spotting you. And that's kind of like that was our trade-off for instead of lowering the suggested weight, we said let's use burnout a ton.
Yeah, I mean, I've started to lean into burnout more myself, and just to piggyback on what you said earlier too, lean into those longer rest periods because for muscle growth, we really want to help you get the most volume, but also train with a high level of effort. So we want those last couple of reps to have, one or two reps left in the tank. So having the right starting load is critical for that. So I think, yeah,
Yeah.
come into each set fresh and you should be okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%.
I'm not sure if there's any other questions. I made the mistake of not pulling up the Facebook Live as it was coming through.
I pulled it up, and then we just got so deep in the conversation. It was so good. It was rolling, but let me look at it right now. Um, Greg mentioned strength score. He made a joke, but I will tell you, your strength score is going to go up in this program, I promise you. Capital P. I'm going to have them coming for me, Jacob. They're going to be like, "What? You lied."
Oh no.
No,
No.
your strength score is going to go up.
Your muscle growth weekly target will grow up as well.
Yeah, and that, and that. Mark, I love the concept of arrow work gets you unstuck. Need to do more of those after a heavy workout or later in the day or on a rest day. Need guidance. No matter where you do it, it's not going to diminish your gains. So, like, wherever, again, I said take that first week, kind of like take some inventory, see how you feel. And then if you feel like you have more energy, do it.
Mhm.
Absolutely do it. Hop on, do like a 5 to 10 minute arrow session. I love that. I love that option. Getting into a little zone 2 work if you're kind of like still pushing for that body recomp. Hell yeah, let's do that. Um, Great question, Mark. Do arrow whenever you want to do arrow, whenever it feels good for you. Um, Let's see. Anything else? Any more questions? Will it be enough upper body for building with the 3 days of legs? So, Katie, great question. It's going to be plenty of upper body. The funny thing is that um, so we will hit like the needed amount, necessary amount of target sets for each muscle group in order to elicit growth for that muscle group within the week. Even though there's only 2 upper body days, we kind of just spread them out because lifting lower body generally is like a little bit more fatiguing. It's a little bit more full body effort. So we have 2 upper body days, but I can assure you, you're still gonna build some gains for the upper body,
And
even
you
though you
mentioned
like.
you mentioned too the on the upper body days that first block it's two compound moves.
Yeah.
So I don't think you'll need much more upper body after
Yeah.
two days of that.
And you still have the accessory blocks on both days. So we're getting in pulling and pushing and accessory, like even some isolation work, like for for everything. So you won't be missing that. Um, yeah, Chris just doubled down and said Burnout's a great feature, tonal ads that one couldn't do with GBT in the gym. And you're 100% right, which is why tonal is the best. All right, guys. I think that's it for the questions. I can't scroll up too far because I got away from the live stream for a second, but if I missed your question, drop it again. If you have more questions, you can always throw them in the comments and I'll come back to this and I will totally ask. I'll answer those questions after the live. But here we go. Chris has another one. I have a partner that I work out with a couple times a week doing other tonal programs. H2H is a little too much for my partner right now. Any suggestions for how I could do H2H on my own and still do beginner workouts with my partner, maybe 2 times per week, skip some movements, use recovery mode, all of that. You already know the answer. Um, Skip some moves, use recovery mode, strategically select which workouts you're doing. Um, yeah, I would say like maybe keep it. You're already going to be lifting a lot of volume for each muscle group on each day, but if you want to like do a lower body workout on a lower body day, maybe just tack on a little extra, do it on recovery mode. That could be an approach. Just that you're not getting like off your program days. You're not hitting lower body 2 days in a row and this and that. Um, that feels that feels like a good suggestion to me. Jacob, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you covered it. I just, if the partner on beginner wanted to do these at the same time, they could maybe do, half of the sets in block one, or something like that, where they could, have, do like a 1-to-2 ratio. So they get full recovery and they'll have their own suggested weight. So they should be able to, hold their own, especially in that accessory block. But maybe if they need to, not do as much volume in the first block, I think that and movement replacements too.
Yeah.
A lot of flexibility.
I like that. I like that suggestion a lot. And again, coming back to no ego, like let's not think about how this is going to affect the strength score. Let's focus on crushing the program. Um, Charisse asked, will much core work be included? We don't include this is one other thing that I wanted to mention. So I mentioned like this is going to feel a little bit different from an energy system perspective because there's not a lot of that like metabolic conditioning element that you typically see with a lot of my programs or workouts. There's also no plyometrics or off tonal movements. Like there's no like timed interval where we're really just aiming to get the heart rate up with some like cardiovascular plyometric move. Big deviation from what you might typically see, but a welcome change. Um, we're going to be focused on lifting on tonal. Every single move is on tonal. And with that said, Cherise, there's no isolated core movements, but trust that you're going to be utilizing your core every single day of this program, particularly in those compound lifts. So yes, there will be no shortage of core, but no core isolation movements. Great question. All right. I think that's it. I feel good about this.
Yeah, that was fun, and I'm motivated. I'm gonna join,
Come
and
on.
when I'm getting my butt kicked, I have the luxury of being able to slack you directly, and but I think I know all the tips now. I know how to approach it. So yeah, I hope our members got the same value out of this.
Me too. You're the best, Jacob. I appreciate you doing this with me. I think it was our first info session together.
Yeah, first of many. We'll do a follow-up and we'll see how people respond to the program.
I love that plan. I love that. All right. Thank you, everyone.